So let's get back to this idea of the beverage universe. Now, I've had far too little CBD this morning to get deep into arguments of the metaphysical. But that beverage universe turns out to be part of a much larger entity. We'll call it the business universe. In both of these universes, we're going to trash the universe metaphor. Right now, companies and leadership teams, regardless of category, are of huge importance, not just in business, but with regard to moral and social leadership, and products are only part of these equations. All those success stories about purpose-driven entrepreneurs, all those Seth Goldmans out there, they've reset the bar and added this new hurdle. That's great. It's helped open the door for new products and ways of doing business, but now you've got to live up to that success and keep your moral position in mind. Now, I know many of you personally, and at least on moral issues, that's potentially worrisome, but not really. The point to remember is this: company actions not only need to be above board now, but even more so, they need to take into account their teams, their sourcing quality, their investors, their environmental footprint, their full product life cycle, not just in terms of limitations, but in terms of leadership. Because business leaders are increasingly regarded as our political leaders as well, and their investors and customers are the electorate. A poll came out from Edelman a couple of days ago saying that 52% of stakeholders want to invest more in companies whose leadership compensation addresses missions that go beyond profitability to environmental, social, and governance concerns. This is not a small change or crowd-funded idea. It came from a poll of 600 institutional investors in 6 countries, worth more than $9 trillion. Now, this cohort, beverage companies, are an incredibly important part of that ecosystem because your products are among the most frequent touch points people have with that branding universe on a daily basis. So the passion that the investors have for this category through these fast turn rates that create massive growth due to trial and repeat business, beverage, when pulled from a shelf or delivered by a drone, is a low-cost affirmation of a consumer's need and a founder's intent. Yesterday, our friends at the Grow agency said that brand is what your product makes the consumer feel. Every sale should be a win for those feelings, and beverages have a season that's year-long and decisions that are made several times a day. Now, the ease of that transaction can also hurt the beverage business. Products, as we know, are packaged, shipped at environmental cost. They have ingredients that some people swear by, but others increasingly swear at. They're the very basis of health, hydration, but also the cause of long-standing health factor declines on an international basis. Now, I'm pointing this out not as a scold, but maybe as a new guiding principle, that for every company here, the consumer, the investor, and the store buyer are demanding that you stand for something. If there's one thing that all of our brands could have, it's a clearer definition of what we are, what we know about our place in the world, and how our company fulfills it. So that's how things have changed for companies. That's what we need to pay attention to in order to succeed. That's also why I can think of no better pair of speakers to kick things off with than Peter McGuinness and Todd Carmichael, because both of their companies and the individuals who lead them have shown an exemplary commitment to exactly the kinds of issues that stakeholders are demanding. Now, here's one example. Over the summer, a Pennsylvania school district threatened to place students in foster care if their parents couldn't afford to clear their school lunch debts. And they sent a letter. Todd, after hearing about this issue, which falls under the nationally discussed issue of lunch shaming, wrote a check for more than $20,000 to clear those parents' debts. The school committee apologized, and it was done with. And I just want to applaud you for that. I mean, he's also marched against what he sees as unfair tax policies, advocated for raising the minimum wage, even though he's running restaurants, and even, in a move that is so close to my heart, sent a load of coffee to the White House press corps. Now, Chobani, as we know, is partially employee-owned. It's spread the wealth to longtime workers. Its founder, Hamdi Ulukaya, has made a point of hiring and protecting an immigrant workforce, and he's galvanized Fortune 500 businesses into the Tent Partnership for Refugees. It's an organization that's dedicated to improving the lives of the more than 25 million displaced people worldwide. In terms of wedding product and purpose, Chobani's core belief is, as Peter put it recently, universal wellness based around nutritional wellness, social wellness, and environmental wellness. Beyond that, it gives back to the business community through a food business incubator that's at least some here participated in, that provides capital instruction, support, and access to some of the company's superstar executives. So, look, these guys are doing good work. None of us are perfect. But it's this reflection of mission in the product that I would just urge us all to think about as we go forward from here. So I started off by saying that product is not enough and mission is of utmost importance, and that's true. But product and taste simply can't be thrown by the wayside in favor of social mission. Knowing that social responsibility is the key, perfect product is what turns it in the lock. Now, Chobani and La Colombe both have been groundbreaking producers of product, which is what has made both of these brands leaders in their respective categories. We're going to talk a little bit about how they built those categories, but also how companies built on disruptive innovation react when things change on them. In this case, it's the rise of plant-based dairy and oat milk as a consumer and retail fetish that both brands, which have strongly built, when you think about it, their platforms on crates of dairy milk, have had to embrace. So what happens when these companies are forced to confront the rise of something within their category like oat milk? Do you ignore it? Do you follow it? Do you attempt to lead? So here's a hint. They've started squeezing oats and launching products. But how do you galvanize an organization and its workers to stretch themselves even further into disruptive realms when there's something of a turn in strategy? I'm inviting Peter McGuinness, the president of Chobani, and Todd Carmichael, the CEO and co-founder of La Colombe, up to share their thinking with us. Please welcome them. No! Look, I've been doing this for a long time. I've been told I have like a half of a good side. So,
You gotta know your angle.
welcome.
Good to see you.
Good to have y'all. So, look, it's not that it was a huge surprise that you would start moving into oat milk, but dairy innovation has been at the core of both brands. So I've got to ask, in terms of the lesson for our team, for our entrepreneurs here, how do you create an environment where you can allow for that kind of, if not swerve, build energy into something new?
Want me to start?
Sure.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I mean, we at Chobani, we say we have milk in our veins, right? We are a dairy company. We make Greek yogurt. It's 3 cups of milk to 1 cup of yogurt. It's strained. That's how you get the protein. So milk is incredibly important, and we just launched a huge initiative called Milk Matters to help dairy farms. 17,000 have closed in the last 5 to 7 years, so it's a crisis no one's talking about. But yet, some people either have a philosophical issue with milk around animal treatment, or some people have a literal physical problem with milk around lactose intolerance or perceived lactose intolerance. That is real. So consumers are searching for alternatives. And you can't deny that. You can't have your head in the sand about that. And there's a way to do both. So this January, we're going to launch twice as many dairy options as we launch oat milk, both barista and regular oat milk, and oat yogurt and creamers. So it's not an either or. And by the way, the consumer's consuming both. In many, many cases, they're flexitarians. So I think what you do is you don't launch plant-based and vilify dairy. There's a lot of that going on. We don't call it an alternative, or we don't market it as better. It's different. And I think that's a responsibility that you have to have when you launch into these new categories, is don't launch one at the expense of another. Consumers don't view it that way, and for you to get the commercial gain based on that, I think is disingenuous and reckless and irresponsible.
Is it hard to sell that in to the organization,
I mean,
though?
you know, we just produced our oat milk yesterday in our Twin Falls plant, largest yogurt plant in the world. We just started running it, so we're, as of today, in the beverage business. And you see some of the barista oat milk out there. And
Welcome.
thank you. And so this is fortuitous to be here now. But it's really hard because A, we don't have knowledge of the beverage business. That's A. B, we don't have plant-based knowledge. We're a dairy company. So to flex into those spaces was incredibly stressful, was incredibly difficult for the team. And there was a lot of kind of anxiety around it, frankly, because we're not familiar with it.
It doesn't get any easier, does it? I mean, from the very beginning, from your very first launch. I mean, a big step into innovation is scary, and it always is, and it's always difficult, whether you're small, medium, or large. And I mean, you guys have done a lot of crazy stuff from the very beginning, through Flip, through the drinkable stuff. So you've been down this line before. Does it ever get any easier?
No, I think what Todd said is being scared is almost the prerequisite for innovation. And if you're not scared, it's not innovative. It's either duplication, not innovation, or it's a line extension.
Formulation.
Or it's some formulation or something. And innovation's scary, and we lived through it for the last 6 months. And it's been, you know, I think Hamdi pushed Chobani really, really hard to do this. It didn't come naturally. It was met with some opposition out of fear and out of lack of knowledge. And that's when, you know, founders and entrepreneurs and innovators like Todd or Hamdi have to push the organization, because often they're ahead of the organization, which, by the way, I think is a good thing.
That's where you have
But
to
if you're too far ahead, that's an issue. If you're not far ahead enough, then you're underachieving.
Yeah.
That balance of how far you push a company and how frequently you push a company is a tricky little thing.
Yeah, timing is important. Yeah, for us at La Colombe, it's a little simpler, oat milk-wise, because we understand something really important, and that it is this. Nothing is finished. That's our opportunity. That's your opportunity. Nothing that you look at. Go waltz through a store, and any product you look at, it's not done yet. There's more to come. And it's your job to figure out what that is and bring that into light, or discover something that's missing. And here's the point. Milk, it's not done. Milk isn't done. Coffee isn't done. Water isn't done. You know, 5, 10 years ago, people were thinking water was done. What do you think now? Is it done? It's not done. So if that means that you have to reach out for another natural seed, let's say oats or something like that, to create this kind of next version, it's almost the decaf version of milk, right? It's natural. And within La Colombe, it was just, the concept was easy for everyone to understand. I brought the very first couple gallons of it back for me when I first tasted it in Iceland, and then it finally, Kyle, my EVP, brought a new brand about, 2-3 years ago, and we spread it across all the different cafes, so we got to see it perform in that space. Within about a month and a half, we outsold oat milk over dairy. It was very clear that the consumer wanted this. In fact, right now it's about 65 or, Jack, was it 65, 70%? About 70% oat milk now in our cafes coast to coast. So it's a thing.
Versus dairy?
Versus dairy. Yeah, it's a thing.
So you knew this was pretty urgent then, even filtering up to the RTD?
Oh, man.
And bigger than almond, right?
Oh, almond was maybe 5-10% of our, people preferred dairy over almond for lots of different reasons. And now they prefer oat milk over dairy, at least in brick and mortar retail. So we had that going for us. We saw that excitement. I mean, it was on fire. So the natural progression to bring that to an RTD was just logical.
Was there any backlash in terms of, look, we're pushing so hard on dairy. Why have you led us this way?
What do you mean, like we're pushing? Well, dairy has just been, a common ingredient. They're two ancient fluids that we put together, and we love them. It's coffee and dairy, and we love that. It's not so much that we're pushing it. We just found that this excited people and the taste buds, and it kind of accomplished all the things that we wanted to achieve with that drink. But at the same time, I'm married to nothing. I am married to nothing. I will turn on everything I've created. Professionally, I will. I'm committed to my partnership and my wife and my children.
Qualify everything Todd says.
Yeah, that's true.
I got you, pal.
No, you don't. I don't marry to anything. You can't to a product because it's not forever. It needs to change, and you need to change it, and that includes us as people and the organization, everything.
How do you bring that organization with you, though? I mean,
I just want to build off one quick thing.
Sure.
I think it's important what Todd just said. Look, everyone said Greek yogurt was dead 4 months ago. Greek is dead, and now Greek yogurt's growing again. And oat is very interesting. We think it is a superior plant. It's a crop. It's easy on the environment. Uses very little water. Has good nutritional aspects to it. Absorbs carbon. Is very complementary in coffee, to Todd's point. It actually goes quite good with cereal. I think it's the closest thing to milk while being plant-based, but it's $50 to $60 million retail sales. So you got to be careful to say it's all about oat. Dairy milk is still $14 to $15 billion in the United States. There are a lot of people drinking dairy milk, and by the way, when you're a kid, it is nutrient dense, right? From protein to calcium. So I don't want to sit here and say it's all about oats and crap on dairy. That's just not true. Now, we love oats, and we're going to be all in. And by the way, we don't do Mall of America intercepts and try our oat milk. Todd's, and La Colombe's cafes having 65% of cappuccinos and lattes made in oat milk was a lot of validation.
Yeah.
We saw some of that in our cafes, and that's very encouraging. But you can't oversteer and, miss the main market or take too much risk in one place. And I think that's why I go back. I think give consumers choices.
From a marketing standpoint, how do you avoid the sort of having the tail wag the dog with this kind of new intro? How do you avoid having the new thing overwhelm the big
the shiny object thing is another dangerous thing. And I think we realize that vast majority of our business is around dairy. And that's why we're launching 30 dairy items this January.
A big piece, though, is I think because you're kind of so inside your game, it's hard for you to see. From on the outside, what I recognize, it's a lot easier for companies to make big changes like this if they've injected the concept of innovator in their brand, if it's expected from you. If you're Quaker and you haven't done anything new for 200 years and then you roll out, it's going to seem weird, right? If you're known as that organization that's always pushing the envelope, the consumer's waiting for your next innovation, and when it comes, they're delighted to grab it. This is really a big part, and I think Peter's done a really great job with his brand in communicating that. Everything new in that yogurt section has come from one company. Every single time, every piece that's always been added to that category has been that. So for them to roll out something new, it's exciting. I don't think it's something they have to push as much as they think.
Yeah, I think we had to push it internally. We talked about that. Externally, consumers had asked us to be in other categories.
Right.
Because we are a purpose-based brand, and when we paid the Rhode Island school lunch debt, and Todd, you did Pennsylvania, we're kindred spirits as brands, because we paid upstate New York and Idaho.
You know that. The same
independently, because we think alike. There was an outpouring of love, 750 articles written about paying $50,000 worth of lunch debt, because it was the right thing to do. And consumers would say, look, in many cases, I don't even eat yogurt, but make something else. I just love the brand. I love what you stand for, and whatever you make, I will buy. And I think that's important when I look at a Todd as well. I think companies are no different than restaurants. So this farm-to-table movement, consumers said, I want to know where my food comes from. Yeah. Consumers are saying with manufacturers, I want to know the person behind this company. I want to know how they make it. I want to know what this person stands for before I commit. And I think this is a massive change. No longer, and that's why big CPG, half of those CEOs don't even try those products before they hit the market. But when you're talking about challenger brands like a Chobani or a La Colombe, they're founder-led, they're entrepreneurial-led, they're mission-based, and consumers love it. So they want to know more about these founders and innovators and what they stand for. And by the way, you have to stand for more than what you make. If you don't make a good product, then you have no liberty or license to do anything other than that. But in La Colombe and Chobani's case, you make a great product. So there's a high need to find more about the company.
From the standpoint of being brands that are living their mission, though, not to say that you may be frightened of backlash, but how do you absorb it?
I got a couple of people I can bring up to talk about that if you'd like to. Here's what I'm a craft guy, right? I'm not a super marketer like Peter is. And Hamdi and I speak about this a lot.
You're strictly low velocity.
I'm just low velocity. No, but the Supreme Court is giving you the right to create a human, an entity, right, and name it. And then you get to inject it with a personality. And it has all the rights of anyone else. It's called your company, right? And when you're forming that, don't you think it would be cool if you created a really decent entity, a human being? If you're gonna, it's like raising a child. Isn't that what I'm up to? I'm trying to create strong, decent human beings. And in that decency is this whole charitable thing that people keep talking about. Because we don't expect companies to be decent, that we give it a special word, charity or philanthropy and stuff like that. When in fact, ultimately, you're just trying to execute on that right that you have of creating this entity, right? And you find that people let you do it within your organization because it does create that human feeling. It does create that. I'm now creating a relationship with this brand, with this personality. I look at it very much that way, and I do say things that other people don't agree with. I don't think homelessness should exist in America. I think it's crazy. We have 700,000 people living in the streets. I don't think it's normal that this country should have children hungry. I mean, you're not feeding the kids. It's just, what the fuck is that? And then I guess there's other things, and I'm just not going to sit by and enjoy my comfortable life and not try to do something about it. And there are people that don't like that. Well, fucking go buy something else. It's kind of my attitude.
Yeah, exactly. Don't buy my products.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to, if you're trying to do lowest common denominator and safest and market the middle, then you're nothing to anybody. And the more you stand for something, the more polarizing you are. But you rally your base, and your base loves you more and consumes you more. So this whole notion of playing it safe is really pathetic in today's day and age. But to your point, we both did independently. We're against lunch shaming, and everyone said, well, that's political. I said, well, no, that's just human. Companies are made up of people with heart and soul, hopefully. In the case of La Colombe and Chobani, they're people that care. So actually our respective companies love that because they're parents. The last thing kids in this school, kids should be is shamed, isolated, hungry. That's insane. It's wrong.
For a food and beverage company, yeah, you can't have
it's
that.
just human.
So
Go against that, right?
Yeah.
I think it's totally true that no one can go against it. Even the idea of being political or being taking a stand in any way has been something that's been unfamiliar in larger corporate America, which is a way of me transitioning a little bit to the question of how big you can be and still be challenging.
Yeah. But I think, I think big companies, they have corporate social responsibility departments, CSR departments. It's ridiculous. I mean, it shouldn't be department, it should be way of life. Yeah. And they're developing these departments to deflect other issues or other agendas. In the case of challenger brands, they're doing it because they actually care about it, right? And everyone should have their own playbook. La Colombe has theirs, there's overlap. Chobani has theirs. Pick 2 or 3 things that matter to you as a founder or you as a brand and go for it and live it. And yeah, there'll be people, our immigrant and refugee hiring policies, we had people protesting our plants.
Dude,
it's uncomfortable.
You had Breitbart attacking you guys.
Yeah, Breitbart. But that was, to me, I thought that was a compliment. But you know, to boards, they don't love that.
I think to most of us.
No,
here.
but I'm just saying, to boards, that's, well, wait a second. You know,
Yep.
you're alienating that whole side of the audience. I said, they don't eat yogurt anyway. But I didn't have that quantified or qualified, but that's my hunch.
This is online.
So
huh?
it didn't hurt the business, and in fact, we ended up, there was a whole defamation suit and stuff like that, and we thought we were on the right side of the trend and truth. So we were loud and proud about it. But I think you got to have courage, and I think
you touched something here. There's an intersection. Okay, it's innovation and this subject we're talking about, decency. And they both are challenges because of that word you said, fear. You got to remember that we're all built on a prehistoric platform of some primate who has some DNA passed on to us that required him to be afraid of everything, right? Primates fear change. We fear the unknown. That's what we fear. This area is the unknown, and you have to navigate in it constantly. That aspirational decency, because you're gonna trip some tripwires. And innovation is the same. It scares the shit out of you. It's hard. There's so much fear in it. I'm an innovator, and I know. I do the easy piece. So any really good piece of innovation has kind of like 3 phases to it, right? The first phase is the famous spark, the idea. Those come. You can have 15 great ideas a day or 1 a year, but there's no real pace to that, right? That's the first, and it's private. It's then pencil and paper and thinking. The next piece is benching this thing, trying to get a prototype out. You have 2 or 3 people involved in that. You don't really need the whole company. And you can do 5 new products a week. I've got a library of them, and I know you guys do.
Yeah, how do you keep them from killing you if you want to do 5 new products?
Well, no, see, I don't connect the creative process with the next piece, which is the grind. It's that moment you've all decided we're going to go for this thing, right? Now that's commercialization. That's commercialization. That's like now everybody in the company is involved, and it's scary and it's good. But this first creative piece, as long as you don't connect them. I think some companies go, oh, I think we need an oat milk, and then you start the spark, and then it goes to us. No, we've created all this already. We've played with it. I have so many formulations. It's crazy. You guys got so much stuff going. They haven't gone into that next phase. So keep the creativity always going. And then what happens is, usually like Kyle will do once in a while and go, dude, I need something new. And I bring him into the innovation department and we start tasting stuff and what do you like? And then it gets pulled kind of out of that portfolio of products. If it's something brand new, something no one's ever done before, like the draft latte or the next 2 things we got going, they're there and everyone's heart is pumping because they know it's going to be pushed down that pipeline and it's going to be hard to do.
For some of what you're talking about, though, you also need a factory, right?
You need capital. So I think Todd's point, I think, and I can relate because I'm literally monkey in the middle. Todd's here and
Yep.
Hamdi's actually in Idaho.
I think you meant here.
And they both have an unbelievable library of innovation. And it's beautiful. But if not sequenced, it could cripple the company, both from a capital perspective. I mean, this oats for us was a huge investment because we decided to go it alone. We didn't want to co-pack it. We didn't want to co-manufacture it. That's lazy. We want to make it ourselves. That's a huge people investment, huge machines, massive capital. And also, it was incredibly interruptive to the company.
Right. So for our entrepreneurs here, how do you go about sequencing that?
Yeah, you have to.
Let me jump in,
Todd,
then I'm going to pass it back. Okay, what's really, really key here, though, is that I used to think it was just about the money. I used to think that, but I realized even when you get big, you don't have money either, right? It's actually not
well,
about.
if you spend it like you, then you never have money. But don't follow Todd's money lead.
No, yeah, but here's the key to the money part is get your freaking prototypes, get them, and they have to blow minds. They can't be just a slight variation of formula on the Pepsi or Coke, or it's got to be something that really blows mind. And once you have that, then you start your pitching. That was key.
Look, I mean, you and I joked. You can die innovating and you can die not innovating.
Oh, yeah. Are you going to die?
And so not innovating is not an option, particularly for startups and unconventional brands and challenger brands. But innovating too much, literally, and I don't mean it just money, Todd. Like, you have to get the sales team geared up. You have to pay slotting fees. There are commercial realities to innovation. And that's why sequenced and paced.
But
and you have to get the whole company excited.
That's
eventually.
the harder one, though.
And if they're tired, because you just did this 3 times in a row, and everyone's exhausted, and they have innovation fatigue, then it's not going to be successful.
So how do you avoid that?
What's that?
How do you avoid that?
By pacing. So I think early on, I'll just speak to Chobani, then I want to turn over to Todd. Early on, we proliferated faster. And we realized that pace was unsustainable from a consumer perspective, a customer perspective, and an employee perspective. So now we are more patient, and that's hard for a young and restless company.
Yeah.
Because we love our innovation and we want to get it out there.
Yeah.
But if you do it too fast, you'll get it out there, and it won't be out there for everyone, and it'll die on the vine quickly, and you don't realize it anyway. So that tug of war with yourself, where you want these innovations out there, but you have to kind of show some restraint.
Yeah.
My perspective.
But I think a key piece there too, and we're mosaic when we talk. You probably noticed that. Is that expect resistance. It's just like gravity. It exists. In my earlier years, I used to fight it. I thought I could pitch my way out of resistance. I thought I could scream my way out of resistance. I thought I could manipulate my way out of resistance. But it's just like gravity. It's just there. And you can work your people through the process less painfully, but you just accept the idea that there's resistance to whatever you want to do. It's going to happen.
Very interesting question from the audience that brings in beyond just internal operations and consumers is the big customers, the retailers and the large distributors who sometimes can be as risk averse as big CPG. How do you bring them along with you?
Big challenge. And I think, for all of you smaller companies out there, you don't have to launch everything nationally either, right? And, look, there are big national customers that lag, that don't lead, that would prefer to take items when they're more tried and true, and they prefer not to be the first ones to accept things. That's totally fine. So think about regional launches where your brand is really strong. Think about key partner launches, and then that's another thing. So you could actually innovate more if you did it smaller scale and rolled out nationally. We've made that mistake too, where we said, we gotta launch national. And you know what, maybe your product doesn't even play nationally. Maybe it doesn't play with that big customer and their guest. And so get yourself off of this, definition of a launch means national. Go regional, go grassroots, go
Even if
ground
you've
up.
already
Go
got a
one
product out there.
store.
Yeah, or once, yeah, you start.
When you put your innovation out, what do? You put it out of your cafes?
See, we did Draft Latte National, and it was, it was a really tough slog. But I had the greatest team on the planet. And then when the multi-serve, it's cold brew, cold filled, so it's a cold filled product. We decided not to go national immediately. We picked up some retailers, we worked it with them, we got everyone really pumped, and we did it in a more mature way than the just light your pants on fire and run around the country. I mean, that's kind of what we did with the draft. So, and when it's all said and done with, I think that the process that we went through with the multi-serve will prove to be a little bit stronger.
Well, it's a next generation, and it's next generation of a company's sales force. Gentlemen, I think there's so many more amazing things we could talk about. We talk about the power of founder-led brands. We could talk about the tension that comes with growth and whether or not you can do things as a private company that you can't do as a public company. We could talk about what these two companies learn from each other. And so I'm going to invite you back to do that in New York, either with this event or with the Nosh event, and we'll just keep going because I love what you both bring to this group. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's terrific.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to hit subscribe and ring that bell.